Joining us now to discuss is the Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security, former South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem. Thanks so much for being here. We really appreciate it. So it's been 4 days since this incident. The FBI is investigating the circumstances around the shooting. What new have investigators learned?
Well, I would say the FBI can give you the details of the investigation, but what we do know is that this was clearly a law enforcement action where the officer acted on his training and defended himself and his life and his fellow colleagues. It's a tragedy that this family has lost a loved one and that our country is dealing with the situation. But that's why we need our leaders to turn down their rhetoric. We need individuals and elected leaders in Minnesota to start partnering with us so that we can do law enforcement operations on the streets to protect the citizens that live there. On
the matter of partnering, state and local officials in Minnesota are asking to be allowed to participate in the investigation into the shooting alongside the FBI. The Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension said in a statement that they've been denied access to evidence in the case. It is normal in investigations like these to be done with federal officials working in tandem with state and local officials. According to the governor of Minnesota, the mayor of Minneapolis, and the State Bureau of Criminal Apprehensions, DHS is not doing that. Why?
Well, we're following the same protocols that we've always followed in these situations. Nothing's changed. We do our investigations, and the federal government continues to do that with the Department of Justice. So
you don't work with locals?
We do work with locals when they work with us, but on the investigation piece of it, ICE and the Department of Homeland Security have a process and a protocol that we've always followed, and we're doing the same thing in this situation.
But what do you mean you work with them when they work with you?
As far as operations on the ground, we would love that. These sanctuary cities such as Minneapolis are extremely dangerous for American citizens. And Jake, since we've been there, we've arrested dozens and dozens of murderers and rapists, individuals who have assaulted children and sodomized them. We just released a whole list of individuals just in Minnesota that we've arrested since we've surged personnel there, and it's incredible. So we would love it if the Minneapolis Police Force and the governor and the state police department would partner with us to help us do this work.
What about partnering when it comes to the investigation? Because Minnesota and Minneapolis say they're being denied access to information, and this took place in their streets.
You know, the investigation's happening at the Department of Justice. I run the Department of Homeland Security, and I really will continue to follow the same process that this administration has in place, but also the same process that the last administration did. It's always been the same. Nothing's changed in this process, and we'll make sure that not only do our law enforcement have the opportunity to get the training they need, that they have the support and the backup on the streets that they need, but they also recognize that when a tragedy like this happens, that we'll do the right thing.
But the officials are saying that the Trump administration, I understand that you're saying that it's the Department of Justice, not DHS. But officials are saying the Department of Justice is not working with them. Should they be working with the locals?
You know, I would say that these locals, if you look at what Governor Walz has said, if you look at what Mayor Fry has said, they've extremely politicized and inappropriately talked about this situation on the ground in their city. They've inflamed the public. They've encouraged the kind of destruction and violence that we've seen in Minneapolis the last several days, and I would encourage them to grow up, get some maturity, act like people who are responsible, who want people to be safe, and the right thing be done. When you use the kind of language that you use against law enforcement officers, they lose their credibility.
You've also been criticized for your comments. The shooting, we should note, was Wednesday at 10:37 a.m. Eastern. Just over 2 hours later, the Department of Homeland Security put out a statement definitively asserting what had happened, defending the ICE agent, accusing Renee Good of domestic terrorism. That's a characterization that you reiterated in a press conference half an hour later. Now, Republican Senator Thom Tillis said, quote, "It was very unusual to have a senior law enforcement official to draw a conclusion about an event where the scene was still being processed. Generally speaking, law enforcement would recognize that a life was lost, that families are changed forever, the shooter's life will change forever. We're collecting video. We're trying to assess the situation." Why did you not wait for an investigation before making your comments?
Well, everything that I've said has been proven to be factual and the truth. This administration wants to operate in transparency. I have the responsibility as the Secretary of Homeland Security to know this information as soon as possible. Had just been in Minneapolis the day before, had already had conversations with officers on the ground and supervisors, and knew the facts, and decided that the department and the people of this country deserve to know the truth of the situation of what had unfolded in Minneapolis.
Well, with all due respect, Secretary, the first thing you said was, quote, "What happened was our ICE officers were out in an enforcement action. They got stuck in the snow." Correct. Because of the adverse weather that is in Minneapolis. They were attempting to push out their vehicle, and a woman attacked them and those surrounding them and attempted to run them over and rammed them with her vehicle. That's not what happened. We
Yes,
all
it
saw
is.
what happened.
It absolutely is what happened. Those officers had been out in enforcement action. A vehicle had been stuck. They had come to help get that vehicle out. That's when this individual started blocking traffic for minutes and minutes.
You said that the
before
woman
this
attacked them and surrounded them and attempted to run them over and ram them with her vehicle.
Blocked the road for a long time and was yelling at them and impeding a federal law enforcement investigation. And that's what you need to focus on, Jake, is they were breaking the law by impeding and obstructing a law enforcement operation. They were breaking the law already, and these officers were doing their due diligence of what their training had prepared them to do to make sure they were handling it appropriately.
You said within hours of her being killed, you said that she was a domestic terrorist. How do you define domestic terrorist?
She weaponized her vehicle to conduct an act of violence against a law enforcement officer and the public. As they are doing that,
how can you assert with certainty that she was trying to hurt the officer as opposed to she was trying to flee the scene?
if you look at what the definition of domestic terrorism is, it completely fits the situation on the ground. This individual, as you saw in the video that we released just 48 hours after this incident, showed that this officer was hit by her vehicle, she weaponized it, and he defended his life and those colleagues around him and the public.
The question is, I don't doubt, my position is, I wasn't there, I didn't see it. Some people say that it clearly showed that she was trying to hit him and did. Some people say, no, she was clearly trying to move her car and flee and get away. I don't know. What I'm saying is, how do you know? How can you assert for a fact within hours, before any investigation, this is what happened?
The facts of the situation are that the vehicle was weaponized and it attacked the law enforcement officer. He defended himself and he defended those individuals around him. That is the definition. When there is something that is weaponized to use against the public and law enforcement, that is an act of domestic terrorism. It happened in our shores. It happened here in our country. You don't get to change the facts just because you don't like them. We will continue to look at this individual and what her motivations were. We know that there was, throughout that morning, she had harassed and impeded law enforcement operations. That raises the suspicion level with all of these law enforcement officers as far as paying attention to what her capacity is. And as you see on the videos, and they've proven out, that this law enforcement officer took the action that his training prepared him for, and he worked to make sure that he could save his own life and those around him.
How can you assert that there's no ambiguity in this before any investigation has taken place?
I had just been in Minneapolis and had been with those officers, had seen what they were facing on the streets every day, and had talked to their supervisors as soon as the incident happened and had gotten the facts and seen videos before I ever went to talk at that press conference. And the Trump administration and President Trump is the most transparent and open government that we've ever had. Give the public the information, give them what they need to know about a situation so they can have the truth as soon as possible.
So if this agents were perfectly fine, if everything he did was accurate, does that mean that other ICE agents should
He
look
wasn't
at what...
perfectly fine. He was injured. He went to the hospital.
No, his actions were fine. I didn't say...
In fact, I think a lot of people and guests, and even you yourself, called this situation something very different and untruthful about what it was, as far as...
What did I say that was untruthful?
That this was not a correct definition of what was happening on the ground.
I said that your description, they were attempting to push out their vehicle and a woman attacked them and those surrounding them and attempted to run them over and ram them with her vehicle, is not what we see on the videotape, and it's not.
It absolutely is the facts of what happened on the ground that day. They were there pushing out a vehicle earlier. They had helped each other.
But that's not what you said. That's not what you said.
Yes,
they were pushing out a vehicle.
Absolutely what I said. There's not one thing.
We all seen the video. I don't need to relitigate it. We've all seen the video. She is blocking the street. They approach her.
You haven't seen the video of the entire morning and the previous encounters with this individual.
Oh, we have aired it. Yes, we have. On Thursday, we were airing and noting the fact that she was there for several minutes, for minutes and minutes and minutes. She was protesting without question.
And at previous locations that morning, that these vehicles had been previously down the block on video that you haven't seen. There's more information
but the
that
question,
this
the question
individual
is
was
not
impeding law enforcement operations throughout the previous moments and hours before this incident
The question is, what was she doing when she was moving her car?
The question
That's the question.
Is why are we arguing with a president who's working to keep people safe? Why are we arguing with law enforcement operations that have gone on in this country for years, and we're working to collect murderers and rapists and drug traffickers and fraudsters off the streets of Minnesota, and we don't have local law enforcement and local elected officials that are partnering with us to help do that work. Overwhelmingly, the people in this country said they wanted America to be safe again, that they didn't want dangerous criminals on our streets. I would encourage the elected leaders in that city and in that state to work with us so that we can do our operations without the kind of opposition and people that are conducting and perpetuating the kind of violent rhetoric that we're seeing today.
DHS policy authorizes use of deadly force only, quote, when no reasonably effective, safe, and feasible alternatives appears to exist. Could he not have just gotten out of the way?
This individual and this officer is a highly experienced law enforcement officer. He has years of training and specialized training for these types of situations. We're grateful that he's alive. It's a tragic situation, and we're going to continue to work on the investigation into the individual and find out what the motivations were behind her actions that day.
We're grateful that, that he's alive, too. I want to play this moment from the officer's cell phone video. This is number 7, folks.
Get out of the car. Oh! Fucking bitch.
Is that Agent Ross's voice calling Renee Good a fucking bitch?
I can't determine which one it is, but it could be, sir.
In June of last year, Agent Ross had his arm pinned in the back window of a car as an undocumented immigrant who was a criminal drove away from a traffic stop. It dragged him about 100 yards. Here's what Vice President Vance said about the incident this week.
That very ICE officer nearly had his life ended, dragged by a car 6 months ago, 33 stitches in his legs. Do you think maybe he's a little bit sensitive about somebody ramming him with an automobile?
If this is relevant, first of all, it's horrible that that happened. If it's relevant, which the Vice President seems to think it is, do you think this understandably very traumatic event that this officer went through last June might have influenced, as the Vice President is suggesting happened, how he responded?
Now, there's no indication to that, but the facts is that we've seen vehicles weaponized over 100 times in the last several months against our law enforcement officers. So they definitely know that the threat is real, that individuals who are trained by activists to go out and to impede their law enforcement operations will weaponize their vehicles and try to run them over and drag them and not stop. So they certainly go into these situations with that knowledge that that could happen, and that's what their training prepares them for.
What evidence are you looking at that so many other people around the country look at and they say, it looked to me, her tires were turned to the right, she was moving her car, and they see a woman trying to flee? You say she was trying to kill the officer. No investigation has happened. Why are you so certain that your interpretation is the truth when an investigation hasn't even happened?
Jake, I'm watching the videos.
Other
I'm
people are
talking
watching
to officers.
the videos
I'm getting
and
the
coming
facts.
to a different conclusion.
Everything that we've stated as the Department of Homeland Security and this administration has been factual, and I wish we would talk factually about what we see every day from these protesters, what they do, what they say, how they chant over and over, kill ICE, attack law enforcement, how they're trained to perpetuate violence against them and to stop the work that they do every day. Each of these law enforcement officers takes an oath to protect this country and uphold the law. They go out every day and enforce the laws of this country to keep people safe. So these individuals that are out there harassing them while they do that work, doxing their identities, threatening them and their families, it's unacceptable. And that's why President Trump is so strong in supporting their operations in all of these cities.
The officer appeared to have fired 3 shots, the first one through the front windshield, and the second and third through the side window. What is the justification for the second and third, given that the officer was out of harm's way?
You're watching the same videos that I am, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're watching the same ones. So you see how quickly the situation unfolded, how the officer was in front of the vehicle when she sped off, how she ran into him, and how he had to take quick action based on his training to defend himself and his colleagues around him.
Once he's out of harm's way.
That's very clear and factual from the videos that you can see. It's nobody's interpretation. We don't get to change it because we can see it with our eyes and we can build on the evidence that we have on the ground.
Yeah, the question
we don't
is
because the
why
politics doesn't fit somebody and what they're trying to do to continue to defraud people in their city and in their state, continue to take advantage of individuals and to allow criminals.
I don't know what you're talking about.
That's what Mayor Fry and that's what Mayor Governor Walz are doing every day by diverting the attention and trying to attack a law enforcement officer. They're allowing the criminals to go by without examination.
Are you saying that the second
questioning
and
them.
third shots, because you just said it happened very quickly, are you
I didn't
saying
say
the second and
anything
third
at all. I
shots?
said watch the videos and
I'm
watch how
asking.
quickly this unfolded, and know that law enforcement officers every day in this country are in difficult situations where they have to make split-second decisions to protect themselves, the public, and their colleagues, and that they have to rely on their training. That's exactly what this officer did. And I know that the left and I know the crazy activists in this country that are trying to undermine our way of life will attack and try to destroy a law enforcement officer.
I'm
to do
asking
that.
a question.
It's just unacceptable, and we're not going to let that happen.
I'm asking a question is, when he's out of harm's way, what is the reason for the second and third shot through the window when he is out, he's not in the line of sight of the car?
This investigation will continue to unfold and more information will come forward. But until that comes, what I would appreciate is everybody sticking to the facts of the situation and recognize that this law enforcement officer took action based on his training to protect himself and the public.
I'm just waiting for the investigation to come through. I'm wondering if you're not doing a disservice to the officer by reaching a conclusion before the investigation takes place.
I haven't heard you say once what a disservice it's done for Mayor Fry to get up and to tell ICE to get the F out of his city, and AOC to stand up before she had any of the facts and call this officer a murderer. For individuals, well, call them out, Jake. Spend as much time calling them out.
Okay.
I have provided you with facts and information to back up every single word that we have said and every single part of this investigation. And if you don't like it, that's fine. But we're going to continue to do the right thing to keep the American people safe.
I know that you'd like to make me the topic of this and not what happened, but I did ask a Democratic senator just a few minutes ago about AOC's comments, and I don't actually even know what you're talking about when I ask questions as if like that's an assertion. It's a question. How can you make a conclusion before an investigation? And there really isn't an answer other than you saw the video. I want to ask a question about the rules of how law enforcement is allowed to engage when feeling threatened, per your assertions. Because I want to show some video to you right now and ask, what is the appropriate response for the police officers in this situation? Those are law enforcement officers being physically attacked. By this standard, would any of those officers be justified in shooting and killing the people causing them physical harm?
Every single situation is going to rely on the situation those officers are on. But they know that when people are putting hands on them, when they are using weapons against them, when they are physically harming them, that they have the authority to arrest those individuals.
The president pardoned every single one of those people.
And make sure that they're getting justice for their actions going forward.
President Trump pardoned every single one of those people.
And every single one of these investigations comes in the full context of the situation on the ground. And that's one thing that President Trump has been so focused on, is making sure that when we're out there, we don't pick and choose which situations are and which laws are enforced and which ones aren't. Every single one of them is being enforced under the Trump administration, and the clarity of the law stands. And if people don't like it, these members of Congress and elected officials should go change the law and make sure they have that debate and policy change.
I just showed you video of people attacking law enforcement officers. Undisputed proof, undisputed evidence. And I just said President Trump pardoned all of them. And you said that President Trump is enforcing all the laws equally. It's just not true. There's a different standard for law enforcement officials being attacked if they're being attacked by Trump supporters. We just saw that.
This individual and these instances and these investigations all have to be taken and done correctly in context of every situation that is happening on the ground. So what we are doing today as the Department of Homeland Security is out there with our law enforcement officers, making sure that we're targeting the worst of the worst and that we're talking factually about each situation and making sure that we're bringing those perpetuators of violence back to justice, bringing them to justice and making sure they face consequences for their crimes. We'd love to have the partnership of Mayor Fry. We'd love to have the partnership of the Chief of Police and of Governor Walz every day when we're out there to make sure they tone down the rhetoric and they do the right thing for the people of Minnesota.